Hello, my name is Deevy Holcomb, and I'm the director of the Deschutes County Department of Community Justice. And I am pleased today to share a little bit with you about our department in advance of our 2025 County College. First off, I think the most important thing to know is that our department is really two divisions. We have a juvenile community justice division, and our mission is to repair harm, reduce risk, and create opportunity. And our other division is the Adult Parole and Probation Division, whose mission statement is to protect the public, repair harm, hold clients accountable, and facilitate pro-social thinking. In general, it's easiest to think of us as working with individuals, young and old, in the community who come into contact with law enforcement for illegal behaviors. In the case of juvenile community justice, we see young people at all stages of that process. For adult parole and probation, we work only with adults who have been convicted of a felony crime and some misdemeanor crimes. Here's a couple pictures of the kinds of things that we do. There on the left is a high school graduation photograph of a young person in detention. In the middle is one of our adult parole and probation officers working with a client in their office. And finally, that photo on the right is several of our parole and probation officers who are attending a community prevention event with young women in our community who are interested in careers in law enforcement. So to give you a little bit of flavor about what the differences are between the two different divisions of juvenile and parole and probation, we have a table here that walks us through that. So first column there, it's actually in the middle, the juvenile column, we'll go through first. Our statutory requirement for providing juvenile services is that it is a county obligation, and therefore most of our funding comes through the county with a little bit of state resources. We serve youth age 12 to 17 who come into contact with law enforcement. We do look at the whole gamut of law enforcement referrals. They send us, so this would be a police department, for example, contacts a youth in the community for a alleged criminal or other violation of statute. They send us that documentation and we review and route that, whether that's internally for the next level down, informal supervision, or whether we route that to the district attorney for potential formal supervision, which is the next row down. Informal supervision means there is no court activity. The youth and family sign what is called a formal accountability agreement or a diversion agreement, and we work with them outside of the court. Formal supervision is probation, what you think of as a youth going before a judge and given a term of probation, which contains certain kinds of conditions that we then support the youth and the family for the youth to complete successfully. Cognitive behavioral training and skill building is something that the juvenile division does for all youth under supervision, whether informal or formal. And that really just means we work with youth using tools, interviews, skill building that help the young person understand that their thoughts and their behavior are connected. So to change thoughts can change behavior, and to teach them new skills that they haven't had yet to help them with success in future. On the juvenile side, we also offer quite a bit of restitution support. We have a program that allows youth to work on community service and for their victims to be paid at an hourly minimum wage rate for the work that they do. That's called our Fresh Start program. We do operate a community service crew. That is a van that usually does landscaping or fuels reduction or graffiti removal services in the community. We do also offer quite a bit of individual community service options when it's not appropriate for youth to be on crew. We also have on the juvenile side something that is pretty unusual for juvenile departments, which is a behavioral health services unit. We offer functional family therapy, which is in-home family therapy. We also have a new substance use disorder program, and we have a crisis mental health worker in our detention facility. And of course, last but not least, we do have a detention facility that will hold youth age 12 to 17, either prior to a trial or when they first come in on law enforcement prior to seeing a judge, and from time to time as a sanction that a judge may order them to. On the parole and probation side, moving to that final column, we have some similarities and some differences, as you can see. For the most part, parole and probation is a state-funded obligation that the state provides counties contracts to do based on state funding amounts. The parole and probation division only serves individuals 18 and over who have been convicted of a felony and some certain misdemeanors. So you'll see that there is no checkbox in the review and route law enforcement referrals or an informal supervision. So therefore what we do is that next row down, formal supervision. That's probation or post-prison. So a person can be sentenced to probation in the community, or they can be sentenced to prison, and when they return home from prison, that is when parole and probation steps in. We do very similar work, similar social science-based work with adults on supervision, utilizing that cognitive behavioral training or skill building techniques. We do offer some limited restitution support, although not as much on the juvenile side. We formerly were able to provide community service crew, but budget reductions have reduced that, so we don't actually have a department-specific community service crew. We still do assist individuals with completing a community service obligation that they may have. Behavioral health services is something that we do have on the parole and probation side, a little bit different than the juvenile side. For the most part, we have contracts that we're able to support within budget constraints for subsidies for individuals who need treatment of one sort or another to help them pay for beginning of treatment or assessment fees and that sort of thing. And most recently, we began a job sharing post within our department with a behavioral health peer support specialist, which has been really a game changer for us. We're pretty excited about that and hopefully can chat with you about that in September. And finally, parole and probation does not offer detention or jail. That is, of course, a function of the Deschutes County Sheriff. To do all this work, as of July 1st, 2025, here is a sum of our staff and our budget. You can see there on the juvenile community justice side, we are a total of 47 FTE. That's a reduction of 2 over last year. Our total budget on the juvenile side is $11.1 million. On the adult parole and probation side, our FTE, full-time equivalency, is 36. That is a reduction of 3.75 staff. And there's a total budget there of 9.2. So the divisions are relatively similar, but the parole and probation staffing component is much smaller. And that's primarily because of the detention program that we operate on the juvenile side at this time. So just to give you a little flavor of, you know now what we do, you know the number of people it takes, how much money it costs, what do we get for our investment in Deschutes County for this work. On the juvenile side, we have a graph here that has a couple of different things going on. So if you'll just watch as I narrate it for you, I should hopefully explain this. And feel free to ask questions when you come to our presentation. First thing is that 75% of young people paid their entire restitution obligation. And that is the bar that is in green. You can see here. It's a really great number. We have some really high restitution amounts from time to time. 68% of young people completed their community service obligations. That is the bar in blue. It's a drop from previous years because we have actually taken some budget reductions in that unit of our division, and I hope you're able to come to County College in September and hear how and why and what we've done in turn. But finally, 85% of young people reduced their risk to reoffend, and that is that yellow bar, that third bar there. And that's a really great indicator. It's based on assessments that we provide young people that look at a variety of crime driving factors in a young person's life. If we can reduce those throughout the course of supervision, we are more likely to help that young person truly succeed afterwards. And finally, for all this different work that we're able to do, this is the red the red line going horizontally. Our recidivism has stayed pretty flat from the prior year, and we're really quite happy that only one youth from Deschutes County was committed to the Oregon Youth Authority Correctional Facility, which is a state-run facility for young people with very serious or extremely chronic crime. Some other things that we're really excited about, we're really very innovative and really appreciate and prioritize working with others to achieve our mutual goals. Young people do not commit crime kind of in a vacuum. There's always family, peers, social things going on, school-based things. We need all of those partners, and we continually work with them. We work with the High Desert Education Service District to promote staff wellness, which in turn helps us work better with youth. We assessed this past year our effectiveness working with young women. Young women have a little bit of a different crime pathway and pathway to juvenile justice, and it's really important that we know what that is so that we can help them specifically to be successful. And finally, we made a lot of progress on creating a family and community-based substance use disorder treatment program in-house. And that's something that is a very complicated issue, and I hope that there's some good questions about that in September, but that's something we've been working for a long time and glad to see it finally start to come to fruition. And lastly, our juvenile department really embraces what is called the restorative justice or restorative practice philosophy wherever possible. And that just really means that we work with young people as human beings. We recognize crime as a disconnection between people. And if we can value all people and reconnect people, that is ultimately a much better pathway to community safety and community health. And we've been improving over the past year to give youth one additional meaningful way to be accountable for what they have done and to themselves. And again, hope you come in September so we can share what that is. Many different challenges coming up in terms of our future. First off, the county budget is under some stress, as I'm sure you are aware. The juvenile department is not an exception to that, so we will be assessing and really making sure that we are just as effective with less resources in the future. Changing juvenile justice trends, this has really been something that has been very dynamic since the pandemic. In general, juvenile crime is way down from 20 or 10 years ago. Our use of detention is way down from 20 and 10 years ago. The types of offenses that youth are presenting with are different, and therefore all these things really need us to constantly be evolving and paying attention. And thinking of that, that effective substance use disorder treatment that I shared in the previous slide, that's something we'll be working on in the future. Implementing what we learned about working more effectively with young women, and providing some alternatives to community service crew, which is a service that has been reduced. In terms of adults, moving to our second division. So again, this is services for people who are on probation or who have returned home from prison. What do we get for our $9.2 million and our 36 employees at this time? Similar kind of thing, there's a chart here that's coming up. I'll try to walk you through it, and again, we can talk more about this in September. First off, really happy, and I want you all to know, take away that adult probation has a really positive impact for the community. This chart right here is primarily about prison usage. So the red line that goes across the top is the average number of days that Deschutes County residents were sentenced to prison in a period between 2012 and 2015. It's known as our baseline. In 2013-2014, the state has given us some additional funding to really reduce prison usage because the state of Oregon, without this, will have to build another prison, which is a very expensive venture and not very successful in terms of preventing crime when people get out. So if that red line is our baseline, all the gray mountain tops and peaks and valleys below are what our actual prison usage has been since 2014. So you can see that with the exception of some of the earlier parts of this time period, so 2013 into 2018, we were still using the same amount of prison from time to time as we had in that prior period. So that was not great news. But since then, you can see we are way under that. So we have sustained significant reductions in prison usage from Deschutes County, and we have done this without decreasing the amount of people who are successful, or a pretty neutral impact on recidivism, which is a new crime after prison. So we've managed to successfully supervise adults in the community who in the past might have gone to prison first. One of the ways that we do that is another thing we're excited about. We're happy to talk with you more about this in September, but it's really important that when somebody comes into our supervision, that we assess what's going on for them, what is driving their crime, what needs do they have, what is their approach to thinking, so that we can help them become successful and crime-free. To do that effectively, we've got to assess them quickly and accurately. And we're really proud that about 70%, almost 70% of our individuals do get that timely risk and needs assessment that helps us tailor our services to what they need. Just like the juvenile division, it's absolutely crucial that we innovate continually and that we engage with others to achieve our mutual goals. There are some real similarities on the adult side with what we're doing on the juvenile side. One is we are pursuing medical and behavioral health resources for clients. State funding for adult supervision has been drastically cut for us this year. And one of the things that we're going to do is reduce the amount of funding that we ourselves provide, for example, substance use treatment. And we think we can do this successfully because there are a lot of our partners that already do this. A lot of times people in the justice system have some additional barriers to accessing those resources. So that's kind of what we're turning our attention to, is helping people access those outside of our system rather than paying for it or providing it internally. An example of this is that just over the past year, we have had a great partnership with Deschutes County Behavioral Health, where a behavioral health specialist is embedded with us in our parole and probation department, working side by side with the probation officer who works primarily with individuals who have serious mental health issues. It's been a really great success. We've seen really good reductions in escalating behavior, people reporting in, people trusting our system. It's been a really excellent partnership. We also recently started, and again, this is in the avenue of helping our clients access supports outside of our department. Peer-based recovery is a really evidence-based practice that helps people with addictions walk alongside professionals who themselves have experience with addiction and are in recovery. We don't often see this in the criminal justice space, but it's a really good model there too. So through a grant, we have just recently started that peer-based recovery support program where we pair up individuals on supervision with peer support specialists in the community who help them walk through the recovery process, again, kind of alongside and as a peer, which is a whole different thing than when it's your probation or your parole officer asking you to do things. Current challenges and future initiatives for our parole and probation side are somewhat similar to the juvenile division. The actual cost of doing business in Deschutes County, doing the work that I've just described and the results that I just described, costs more than the state of Oregon, through a formula, is providing us to do. And this is kind of a continual problem. Our cost of expenses goes up. For example, personnel costs go up, or the cost of purchasing equipment or materials goes up. And the state amount, while going up every 2 years, doesn't really reflect that annual increase that we see as a Deschutes County agency. So that is a continual act of looking for alternative funding and or looking for ways to be more efficient. And we are right in the middle of that exercise and happy to share with you more in September on that. Kind of along with this is stabilization and safety for justice involved individuals is huge. When someone is unstable, it's more likely to lead them to act in unsafe ways for themselves or others. We are continually working to support people in their lives to restabilize so that they have a really good foundation from which to try to learn new habits, new thinking, and make good use of opportunities that come to them through this rehabilitation process. It also means that we absolutely, from time to time, have to step in and provide external accountability when folks are not able to maintain themselves in the community or stay stable. Future initiatives kind of related to both of our challenges. Very similarly to how we assessed our work with young women at the juvenile side, the adult division has also done this same kind of assessment, and we just started over the last year to work quite differently with women in ways that are proven to improve their outcomes. Really excited about this program and happy to talk with you more in September. Just know that's an initiative that we're working on. With budget cuts and budget restrictions comes less staff one way or the other. It's very, very important then that the staff we do have are able to be nimble and flexible. So we prioritize positions and training that allow people to do a variety of tasks, because once your team starts to shrink a little bit, it's really important that everybody knows how to do a few more things. So that's something we've been working on. And then finally, you may be familiar or have heard of the real toll that working in public safety can bring to people's mental health. These are on the professional side. We're exposed to a lot of trauma. We are helping and walking side by side with people on their worst days. And without attention to our own personal wellness and our professional wellness, you see some of the highest rates of morbidity and mortality within public safety retirees than any other business in the public sector. So we're a little bit late to the game on this at Parole and Probation, but we have recently really tried to focus on a variety of ways to help our staff be well, and we mirror those on ways that the police officer community has really professionalized and set forth for us. So that's a new thing we're doing. So that is, in a nutshell, Department of Community Justice. I think that, at the end of the day, what I would love for you to take away is that community justice is here in our community, in all communities in Deschutes County. We're walking alongside young people and adults in the worst days of their lives. We're keeping the public safe when individuals are not able to or not choose not to. And we never forget that whatever happens today is laying the groundwork for tomorrow. So I will leave you with a really inspiring piece of work that we received from one of our young people on supervision. And it's a poem that they shared with their community justice officer that really talks a little bit about what it might be like to be a young person trying to get through the day. And I think it's really reflective of our field. So I will end with reading you this poem. It's called Held Together by Cracks, and it's by Youth OK. Those are their initials, just to protect their anonymity. I was stuck, unable to move, frozen in time. I'd just stand there and pretend that I was fine. Hours turned into days, days turned into weeks, weeks turned into months, months that passed me by in a blink of an eye. Suffocated is how I felt, the cord tightly wrapped around my throat. Eventually, I began to fall, sinking into what I once was, barely keeping my head above surface. Where was my applause? Holding on to hopes and dreams, but I just got torn apart at the seams, wishing that one day it would all get better, but I never received that letter. My shadow learned to speak before I did, echoing pain I thought I hid. The mirror cracked, but still held my face, proof that broken things still hold grace. But in the silence, I heard something small, a whisper, maybe me, maybe not at all. A flicker in the dark, soft but true, saying, "You've been breaking, but still you grew." Maybe healing isn't loud. Maybe it's slow. Maybe it's the courage to stay, not just go. But tell me, if I keep breathing through the ache, does that mean I have what it takes? Thank you for your attention. I look forward to meeting everybody in September in real life. Again, my name is Deevy Holcomb, and I'm the Director of Deschutes County Community Justice.